Okay, so Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice Ultimate Edition on 4K Blu-ray just arrived. I got this from Amazon. There are only 3 left. It's obviously an import, and I'm going to open it. And now I feel kind of silly buying it, but I still like having it, you know, and I say that because there is a new version, from what I hear, going to be coming out probably before the Justice League Snyder Cut, which will come out in March on HBO Max. But for this, the only changes they're going to make are post-production, editing, color correcting, aspect ratio. But it still seems a little silly. But hey, if I have this, I have the other one, the new one that's going to come out. That's a different edit, so it's not going to be what's on here. So it's good to have this. And I'll probably get rid of my regular Blu-ray as well. All right, so this is an import. I doubt that there's a digital copy. There usually isn't in the UK, which is fine. I already have a digital copy. Although they said there was going to be. I don't quite understand why, though. I do not believe them in the slightest. Let me close this. Anyway, I am going to be very excited to watch this and very interested to see the upscale, see the upgrade for it, because it was shot on both film and digital, mainly film. You can easily tell when you watch it what parts were shot on film. It's the regular Blu-ray is not incredibly grainy, but I think there was probably a fair bit of DNR put onto it. So I'm very excited to see it, and I will watch it, and then I will get a review out right after this. So there's a striking difference between the 4K Blu-ray and the standard Blu-ray. The 4K Blu-ray doesn't have any grain. There might be some a little bit here and there, especially with more dimly lit scenes, which is most of them in this movie, but there are some that are more dimly lit than others. And the standard Blu-ray, like I said, might have had a lot of DNR applied to it, but it might also have a lot to do with the lower resolution. But there's definitely a lot more grain in the standard Blu-ray. And this movie is very, very bright. The peak brightness can get very high for a movie that's known for a lot of desaturation and being dark and gloomy. It's very bright. It has some very bright moments. And of course, as you would expect, the colors are very different. Since the dynamic range on a standard Blu-ray is so much lower, if you bring up the saturation, especially on people's skin, it's going to look very orangey and a bit more posterized, and it's going to show the lower resolution, which you don't really want. The higher level of grain on the standard Blu-ray is so much worse. When you rack focus from one thing to another, the thing that just went out of focus tends to look a lot grainier than if you watch it on the 4K Blu-ray. The 4K Blu-ray, everything is a lot smoother. Now, as for the movie itself, I really, really enjoy it. It's bad. It's really bad. There are some problems. There's a lot of problems. But it's pretty awesome, I'll have to tell you. It's difficult to explain why I think this movie is so awesome, because it's not awesomely bad in the same way that many other films are awesomely bad. I don't find the content of the film to be so absurdly bad that it's good. There are just some genuinely awesome moments in this movie. The action in this movie is very well done. It was far more interesting. It was a little bit more creative. I know it held my interest. It wasn't just the same thing over and over and over again, just to make it longer. I really liked seeing the destruction from Man of Steel from Bruce Wayne's point of view, because in most movies we just see the citizens cheering on the hero, even with this massive destruction going on. this is what you would actually see. This is what it would be like if you were one of the citizens. It gives Bruce Wayne great reason to hate Superman. He doesn't need to be pushed into fighting him. One of my favorite moments is when Perry White looks at their next day's newspaper. The headline reads, "Superman Dead." And then when he opens it, inside there's a picture of Clark Kent. And it says, "One of our own, Clark Kent, will be missed." And still no one has any idea that he's Superman. That is a very funny, clever lampooning of the character. Yes, they really messed up the characters, and I can understand why people don't like the way, well, Batman or Superman is in this movie. But I don't quite understand why people don't like Ben Affleck as much as they do as Batman, because he was great. He was really, really good. He didn't have the greatest material to work with, but he worked with it really well. Superman, on the other hand, is just wrong. He's dour and sad, and it's fine that he's conflicted.
Superman was never real. Just the dream of a farmer from Kansas.
You know, that's the point of the film, but he just doesn't take any joy in anything except for being a reporter. It seems like he'd rather be a reporter than Superman.
When the planet was founded, it stood for something, Perry.
And so could you if it was 1938, but it's not 1938.
So the Superman character in this movie needed a lot of work. The Batman character, it could have used some tweaking, but he was pretty much the way he should be, I think, as an older man. A lot more cynical. Dealing in absolutes is not quite his thing.
He has the power to wipe out the entire human race, and if we believe there's even a 1% chance that he is our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
But I think it's still somewhat believable. And I really liked Alfred in this movie too. He was a bit more bitter, and he was very frustrated with Batman still being a bachelor, probably unwilling to produce another generation of Waynes.
Not that there's likely to be a next generation.
Now, I think performance-wise, one of the biggest sore thumbs people had was with Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, and I can kind of understand that. I can definitely see it. The biggest comparison I heard from people was the Riddler, and he was more like the Riddler than Lex Luthor. I know on Red Letter Media, when they reviewed it, they said, oh, he could maybe make a good Joker, and actually he probably would make a pretty good Joker. But I think he was fine. He could have been a little bit more subtle. There were little moments when he was pretty subtle, and you could see the cool, cold, calculating, evil character coming out, particularly in the scenes with Holly Hunter.
You and your hearings. Galloping through the streets to warn us. 1, if by land, 2, if by air.
But other than that, he was just kind of frantic and crazy, and he seemed like someone who has mental problems, but the wrong kind of mental problems, not the kind of mental problems that someone like Lex Luthor would have. His portrayal was a bit off and uneven, but I think it was still pretty good. Not solid, definitely not, but it was still pretty good. And Doomsday, the only real problem I had with Doomsday was the same problem I had with Godzilla in the 2014 Godzilla, and that was his face. I liked the fact that they had him be like Godzilla in Shin Godzilla, where, you know, the more damage you do to him, the more he evolves. But that face, there's just something really off about that face. I don't know why they decided to make it look a bit more scrunched than it should. He looks kind of like a giant clay face mixed with a pug. The death of Superman in a live-action movie is something I'd wanted to see for a long time, and I think they kind of missed the mark, but not in the way that it was done, but in the fact that the fight was with Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Doomsday, but it was primarily Batman and Wonder Woman who were fighting Doomsday, not Superman. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, to be honest. But ultimately, I think the movie is really awesome, and it is far superior to Man of Steel, which was so boring and just dumb. And then it was just the same fight scene over and over and over and over at the end. Just already have the character there and established in the film universe. We'll catch up as long as you tell the story properly visually. And I hate origin stories too. Oh, and who else loved the fact that Jimmy Olsen was established for like 3 minutes and then got killed?
Jimmy Olsen, photographer.
CIA.
That was fun. They obviously only did it for the name recognition. Now I have an idea of how that could have been better. Have Jimmy Olsen already be a photographer at the Daily Planet, establish him like that, and then maybe he gets approached, or he and Perry White get approached, or maybe just Perry White does, and then he brings him in to be the photographer on this assignment that Lois Lane gets. And maybe Lois knows too, but then she says, no, absolutely not, this is a bad idea. And then they go behind her back, and maybe that causes some tension between them after the whole thing happens, and then she quits. And that might have been a bit much to put into the movie, but I think it could have worked. I know a big point of controversy is the famous "You're letting him kill Martha" moment. But Batman has the proper reaction in that. He has the reaction that we all do, which is, what the hell are you talking about?
What does that mean? Why did you say that name?
It just wasn't established properly again. After all, Superman calls Batman.
Bruce.
You could have just had it play out the same and changed the line to, he's going to kill my mom. I think that would have hit a chord with Batman. But if you want to get a little more in depth and a little more in detail and establish it even better, what you could have done was have a scene or a couple of scenes where Clark is researching the Gotham Batman as he was, and then he just stumbles across the article of Bruce Wayne's parents getting killed, and that's how he knows that Bruce's mother's name was Martha. Then the whole thing would make a lot more sense. Okay, so I definitely recommend this movie, if only just to watch it for fun. Like I said, it's a little disappointing that they're coming out with another version of this, but I think it'd be fun to have a third version of this. After all, I have 3 versions of Army of Darkness. Of course, that's all in one set. And again, I'm really looking forward to the new Justice League Snyder Cut that's going to come out. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you later.